Historical Storytelling meets Humanities on June 20th, but oh no, we are not done. It's because we're year-round. We may have these big culminating events, but that does not mean we are done. In fact, we have been brainstorming and thinking of more ideas. We've had to adapt some of our grants, and because of that, we are delving into things that perhaps we thought in the very far back of our minds, and they suddenly get pushed forward. So very exciting that we can do that. One of the things that's being tossed around that we're hoping to finalize within a week will be virtual story camps for youth for ages 8 and older. And there are several other groups like the Artists Standing Strong Together. They are doing youth camps. I know that there's individual storytellers that are also doing that, and that's okay because there's a lot of youth in the world and somehow we need to reach them all. They don't have to be the youth that see themselves as storytellers, but at least maybe the ones that are willing to try something. Whether they have a drama experience or not, we are calling all youth. And we're excited that Sherry Davis and Ginger Parkinson, who have done live story camps for over 10 years, is actually on our side to make this happen. So we'll see how that goes. And we will just have to find out from some organizations in Salt Lake City. Now, the funding that we have that we're trying to adapt is with the Salt Lake City Arts Council, and if that name gives a hint, we definitely need to have Salt Lake City involved. And because we are based in West Jordan, still in Salt Lake County, but in West Jordan, it can't simply be at my home. The spectacular and the big wide panel, all of that was able to be at my home, but we will see. It's easy if we do it virtual, but sometimes you don't want to always choose the easy path. The little bit harder would be to phase into live, to actually having the story campers before you, obviously with proper distancing and with masks. And we do have those masks. We're prepared that way. But do we actually have a park? Now, we've always been thrilled that the city of Murray gives the Murray City Park to us for free every year, and that saves a bunch of money. But we don't have that same kind of relationship with parks in Salt Lake City, and it's obviously best to have any in-person event outside. Now, of course, you don't know what's going to happen with rain, and no matter what, we can have virtual be a backup plan even with a limited sized event. So we'll have to see how that goes. And we're reaching out to the Girl Scouts. We need to reach out to the Boy Scouts, the Boys and Girls Clubs, the 4-H groups, many of them that already have these youth together. I know that the Boys and Girls Club have done virtual club meetings, and this might simply be up their alley if we can make it happen. I do know that Sherry and Ginger were able to have 40 youth tellers with a completely virtual one before what we're trying to do. So they're already experienced, they've already done it, and the nice thing is they've already learned some things so that we can figure out what could happen for ours. Now, the big difference that I noticed when talking with Sherry is that they actually didn't get any parent signatures, and that's a lot of youth and no official parent signature. Luckily, with online applications, it doesn't have to be an actual ink signature. It can actually be a time-stamped signature, and that's what we're going to do. We've done Google applications before with our youth tellers with Story Crossroads, so luckily we have something to draw upon and to adapt. But what makes it a little bit different is any time that you record. For the story camp, we wouldn't multi-stream, definitely when it comes to youth. We would keep it exclusive, but we still would like to record within it so that maybe portions of it might be able to help promote any future story camps that are linked to Story Crossroads. I am thrilled that Sherry and Ginger brainstormed together of what we could look at for capping it off. Because I asked them, I said, well, how many would you feel could participate if it was live versus if it was virtual? And Sherry told me that she could see up to 15 to 20 if it was live, which makes sense to me, especially if you have the 6 feet and you can have a decent area for that. The other way is virtual, and she saw that it could be closer to 40, which they had already done. She said that 40 was the maximum. The reason why you can do more with virtual is because you can actually not worry about the space of the 6 feet apart, so that's part of it. But you also have the benefit of breakout rooms, and you can have what she called camp counselors, with Sherry and Ginger being the main ones, but having a couple counselors who would be familiar with the story games, who could also represent or perform themselves. And obviously there's just the technological logistics when it comes to this kind of event. So we shall see. We don't know if we'll be able to swing it in time. We don't usually plan so quickly. We usually plan a year in advance. It's very strange when things are down to 1 month or 2 weeks or 1 week before you have to get it out there and advertise. Because in order for this to work, we're aiming possibly for August 12th, 13th, 14th. So that would be a Wednesday, Thursday, Friday from 10 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. Mountain Daylight Time. So it'd only be 3 1.5-hour sessions, really more of a mini camp than a full camp, but still enough that on their own they could even practice a little bit. Maybe not a ton of practicing, just because when it's 3 days in a row, I mean, you're going to see those people the very next day, but since it's not something that's taking 3 hours or 5 hours, there still is that time that they could reflect, hopefully craft their pieces, and be ready to perform their pieces. We'll see. We don't know. I also need to double check with Salt Lake City Arts Council. Now, many different organizations during this time have had to adapt their paperwork, and oh boy, the paperwork. And all of them have these different amendment forms, and I have to submit that. But we have to get commitment with certain partners or possible partners before I feel like we can do that. So we're on a countdown clock right now. If it doesn't work out, don't worry. We're very creative and we'll figure something out. And I definitely want to have the talents of Sherry Davis and Ginger Parkinson be able to be showcased in some way. We just have to figure it out, and it has to take place before the end of August. So if it does happen August 12th, 13th, and 14th, that is definitely before that last day of August. So wish us luck on that. She said that what was helpful was that every time that they would meet, there would be modeling of storytelling, which I do find that is one of the best ways to teach storytelling, is to actually do storytelling. Imagine that, actually doing the art to teach it. Wow. And then they're able to work as partners and such. Even if there's a 6-foot distance, luckily people can project their voices. And sometimes I find that youth have a hard time projecting, but if you're about 6 feet apart and wearing a mask, this might actually truly improve volume with our youth. I know when I work at the library and I'm wearing a mask and working there, it's definitely louder in the library because everyone has to speak up due to the masks. So who knows, this could really be wonderful for the youth that are a little soft-spoken but have to speak up because of wearing a mask. Now, if I had my choice between live or virtual, I lean towards live. because we have done full virtual for Story Crossroads. We have done full live, obviously, for many years for Story Crossroads. And we want to be able to phase back into being with each other. Just in each other's presence, even if it's 6 feet apart, is still in each other's presence. And there's an energy that is there that is just wonderful. And I'm positive that there must be some brain research that could be done about the importance of being in person. Not that virtual couldn't have it happen. The nice thing about virtual is we could have more people. We could have 40 instead of having 20. So who knows about what we want to do about that. And we'll find out. We also had tossed around that because of the Salt Lake City connection, that any Salt Lake City resident youth would be able to participate for free as long as they pre-register. But if it suddenly happened the day of and we had some openings left, then we would need to charge something. And then, of course, anyone who was a non-Salt Lake City resident, so that could be anywhere, whether it's in Salt Lake County, or whether it's in Utah, whether it's United States, whether it's around the world, it could actually open up beyond that. But we really are focusing more in our geography. But if it happens to attract people from outside, that's fine too. But obviously then the only way for that to work would be completely virtual. But it's not the most important thing because, like I said before, there are other groups and individual storytellers who are offering story camps. And I can always gladly share that with people, as well as what we're trying to do. We're still trying to figure out a youth teller reunion. When we last had a board meeting with Story Crossroads, we were thinking possibly about, maybe July 11th, and to test out a virtual youth teller reunion. It's not the same as going to Boondocks and the arcade games and all the fun that we would do. I just don't feel like we can safely do that yet. I do want to actually personally call each of our youth tellers and say, hey, look, we haven't forgotten you. Remember I told you that we're hoping to do a virtual reunion. What do you think of this day? We're going to try to do this through Zoom. Again, it wouldn't be multi-stream, it'd be exclusive, and especially when it comes to youth, when you're dealing with minors. And Jack Skellington, great to see you here. Utah County, you are Utah County? Okay, I think I knew you were Utah. I didn't realize you were Utah County. I hope you know about the Timpanogos Storytelling Festival then. I'm curious about what they're going to do. I really should reach out to them tomorrow and see if there's any updates. If you've never gone to the Timpanogos Storytelling Festival, you have to. So it's timpfest.org. In fact, I should just type that in there and do a shout out to them, because I don't know what they're planning, but I hope they're planning something in September. Let's make sure I actually spell things right. That's always helpful, right, everybody? So timpfest.org. That's not connected with Story Crossroads, but we love storytelling and we will promote for all things if we can. And I hope they do something. They were debating on it. And a lot of people, a lot of festivals are just delaying for the next year, but we've had so much great success with our virtual events. I can't imagine not doing something. Maybe it doesn't have the full 2 or 3 days worth of festival and conference, but you can certainly do a day. And if a day is too scary, you can certainly do half a day. And if half a day is too scary, then you can do at least 1 hour, right? Commit to that. Baby steps. If you need to have smaller steps, then take them. But don't let fear get in the way. Have fear be a driving force that transforms into hope, transforms into excitement. That's what all of us need to do at this time. Doesn't matter if you're a storyteller or whatever performing artist or just anything that you need to pursue during this time. Please go forth and do it. So will it be in person or virtual? That's the big debate. We don't know right now. Timpanogos, I think the only way they could at this point would be virtual, just because The cases of COVID have gone up. They're, at least in Salt Lake County, not Utah County, but at least in Salt Lake County, for a little bit, the mask is being mandated. It might be longer. I don't know. Timpanogos does have some great broadcasting abilities. They've live streamed for one of their festival days before, and that typically was on the Friday. So it's not like they are not familiar with that technology. It's just that I know that their festival costs a lot more than ours. So Story Crossroads, we cost about $20,000 a year to run. And we have been very, very blessed with all kinds of grants and funders and donors to make that work. And Timpanogos, they're a bigger animal than us. They've also are a lot older. So I believe they just celebrated, was it 30 years? So because of that, they cost more. The last time I understood, it took at least $90,000 a year to run Timpanogos. And I know that they're running into craziness just like anyone else. Hard decisions. So whether it's in person or virtual, I'd love for you to just to be in touch with that, Jack. That would be wonderful. And go to that website, and I've looked at it to see if there's any hint, and I really don't have much of a hint. And we're already going into July, and usually by this time, Timpanogos has early bird prices, and they usually end for sure by August 1st. But there would at least be something now. It makes me a little nervous. Come on, Timpanogos, please happen. I always like to get off from the library when you happen. Give me a good excuse, right? And again, it's not connected to Story Crossroads, but I love everything story. I will promote and love all these possibilities that are out there. And Utah, we are very lucky. We have a lot of storytelling festivals, Timpanogos being the largest one. The second largest one in Utah, in case you didn't know, is the Weber State University Storytelling Festival. And I'm already wondering what they're going to decide to do, because usually in September is when they have auditions for the locals that are professionals who've done it a long time. I don't know what they might do. They might simply have auditions be completely video and not any in person, unless there's distancing. I'm not sure. And then Weber State happens in February, usually the last Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday of February. And yes, it seems like February's a long time away, and yet it feels close. I'm already getting a sense from schools that they will not do field trips next year unless it's virtual. And we may have to do what we did this year, but expand it. If at least country borders are not closed, I'm hoping we can still bring out our Hungarian and Alabama storytellers and use our videography and lighting, and even though it wouldn't be the same and not the ideal, that's what I'm hoping. We'll see what happens. I was on a meeting today for the producers and organizers. It's a special interest group with the National Storytelling Network, and there's a lot of us trying to decide what to do. There's something that's possibly in the works in November that might be a mini conference for people interested in producing events. I think it'd be helpful not just for storytelling producers, but any performing arts, to share ideas. It sounds like it might be a mixture of workshops and panels of what to do about 2021. You know, we've had to make decisions for 2020, but I have a sense and feeling that this is something that's going to be around 2021, possibly 2022. Would I like it to be shorter? Absolutely. But I have to be optimistic about things as well as realistic, and having at least 4 plans at any one time. But the good news is you can trust that every year we will do something for Story Crossroads. We will at least do full virtual. We've done it before, we can do it again. I would prefer that we keep exploring and not always doing the same thing. I like every year to be a little different. So now that we have some experience with virtual, then we can have, instead of 1 day, we can have 3 days. We can reach out even more with virtual field trips. And already I can see our field trip request letter tweaking, saying we don't know if there's going to be live, or if that's even something that you would even consider for your school or school district, though please keep us in mind for a virtual field trip. We'll see. But in the meantime, we're also planning the house concerts coming back, the first one being August 14th of 2020. And we want to film it, but we may not live stream it. We're thinking that for the house concerts only, we may record it and then have it be an unlisted YouTube listing for people who want to see it, and then they can donate to then see it, which wouldn't be too much, but something that would be helpful, because anytime that you record something, there's always a cost involved, and if we at least cover our costs, I would feel better. But since our house concerts are meant to be fundraisers, it'd be nice if we obviously go on the side of the plus side, because I already know that next year there's a grant that we usually rely on that will be non-existent in the year 2021. And that's not going to scare me. That just means that I got to work harder and look at other grants that are out there. I can be spoiled sometimes, and I know certain grants that I will try for every year, but bit by bit I can find out other ones that are out there. So if you happen to be aware of grants, then let me know. Luckily, you can actually research grants. I don't know if you're familiar with this. A lot of library systems will let you do this. Even now, even if your library's closed, there's a lot of online databases that you can take advantage of. And United Way of the Great Salt Lake, you can actually research grants that might apply to your situation. And it's not just for the arts. It could be other things too. So just keep that in mind, all of you, if you are seeking out the money needed to make those dreams a reality. If you're curious about some numbers, I know I haven't talked about the big Y for a little bit. I've been really pleased with how that has turned out. Last week I shared about how we had 50 people at one time with the live stream, but within 2 hours it was 230, and within 2 days it was over 500. And already, just the YouTube alone, it was going from 30 to 60, and I think the last time I looked it was at least 120, and it keeps being shared. And people keep saying it's excellent, and the word of mouth has really been wonderful with that particular virtual event that we did. I love that it's been recorded, it's archived, so people can still watch it, and they are still watching it. I've been watching the website numbers of people who come to certain pages on Story Crossroads, and every day it's been consistent that our top page so far lately has been the big Y. So that is the storycrossroads.org/the big Y. You can even see it down there below. And of course I also have the link on there for Spectacular with there's a playlist of 5 videos, so you can even watch what we did there. So wish us luck. Please, please, that everything works out for this story camp. I really would love to see it happen. Sherry Davis and Ginger Parkinson really are amazing. They've done this for over 10 years. They already tested this out in Utah County with 40 youth already, so we know we can do it again. Oh, I hope so. It comes down to people responding. I already sent out the feelers, but I'm just going to have to follow up tomorrow. Sometimes the way that I do things is I send an email first, then I call, because when I call, I can reference the email that I sent. We'll see. I'm looking at the time. We're making these a little bit shorter now, and I wanted to share just a moment that I had just last week. Because I've had to be extra creative with my kids of what to do, we decided to do backyard camping. We were all excited. We had a tent that we had gotten for Christmas. We had popped it up in the basement, but there's something about putting up that new tent in the outdoors. We did it in the early morning, so it was nice and cool, and we got it up and we put in our sleeping bags, but it really wasn't going into the tent that we were looking forward to. It was the fire. We had to have a bonfire. We have a little bit of a cement slab, and it was just enough to put up 3 tiki lamps. So we had those tiki lamps up and burning, and a small little, almost a miniature barbecue, but way smaller. It had cost me $10 when I found it in this store, and it's probably about the size of an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper. It's that small, but it's bigger than a tiki lamp. And the kids and I were excited to at least see a little bit more flame. So we gathered up some of the dry weeds, so it did more than one thing. It got rid of weeds, plus worked as kindling. We got some cardboard and we cut that up, and we had some random sticks around our house. No big logs, because that little thing was not going to take a log. If I would put a big log in there, it would just go splat, and then we'd have no place to burn. And we lit it, and it got darker. We got our camping chairs around, and I looked at those kids and I said, I know that I could tell you stories. I definitely know ghost stories, and you already know that I have seen 2 different spirits, one as a kid, one as an adult. But there is one story, a simple story, that it would mean a lot to me if you kids would remember this story to then share with your kids, who will then share it with their kids. Couldn't you do that for me? And all 3 of my kids just nodded their heads up and down. And this is what I shared. It was time to go to bed, and I was ready. I climbed into my bed and I pulled up the covers until I realized that I forgot to turn off the light, but I had just settled. It was so comfortable. And then I heard, "You're welcome." And the lights went out. When I told my 3 kids that shortest of ghost stories, at that moment, the fire erupted in that small little fireplace, and we all smiled big, because we knew that there was a friendly ghost with us, maybe even that same exact one that had helped me to turn off that light, and I didn't have to get out of bed. So the kids promised they are going to share that story onward through the generations. Small and simple of a story, but still, it was special. And perhaps now that you've heard that shortest of ghost stories, you'll tell it as if it happened to you or to someone else. But as it is with storytelling, you want to make it your own. So I give you full permission to go and do that. Thank you, everybody. I'll be back next week until we tell again.